One of the things that came through to me was that when you were very young at the school in Albany, it probably felt quite organised as far as the child is concerned, but it was quite relaxed as far as classes are concerned across the country, because it's a smaller community school. But leaving there and going to Portsmouth in the UK, and then you went on to Beedales, which has much more sense of freedom. And you could choose certain things to do. There's a flexibility there. But a lot of it was self-discipline, wasn't it?
Yes.
It wasn't so structured. And then from there to go to university, which is much more structured. I wondered how you feel about that kind of progress.
I've had a really lucky time with schools. I've always enjoyed school. I've always enjoyed the particular schools I've been to, and I've always enjoyed learning. And I've always had good relationships with teachers. I think going from Alderney to the UK was probably the biggest change, but it was also because we'd moved, Mum had moved, and it was also because we'd gone from a tiny island to a massive, a massive city. At the time, it felt like the biggest city. I think maybe the Beedales was the school that sticks out the most in a way, because it was very liberal. Alma House, although it was small, it was on an island, a very small island, so the school was very small. Although it was quite small, it was quite traditional, I think. And we wore a uniform. We called the teachers Mr. and Mrs. something, and the grammar school was similar to that, at least similar, because we wore a uniform and we still called the teachers Mr. and Mrs. something. And then when I went to Beedales, I can't remember how old I was, maybe 12 or 13 or something. I can't remember. And then we didn't call our teachers Mr. and Mrs. We called them by their first name, which is unusual in the UK. And we didn't have a uniform.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And you had to go to your lessons, but it was a very relaxed atmosphere. And you do sort of, like you said, you had to do the work. You had to motivate yourself.
Yes.
Nobody would really follow up. If you didn't do things, you'd be in trouble, but nobody would follow up with you. Intentionally, that was the idea of the school, was that you had to motivate yourself and organise yourself. I think that was actually a good preparation for uni, because nobody at uni follows. They haven't say, remember to do your work. They don't say, remember that you have this due in 3 days' time. Have you done it?
So you've got to watch your own clock.
Yes, they tell you what work will be due in when, and actually if you don't do it, they don't really mind, but you won't benefit from that. So it is up to you to make sure you do it. It is up to you to manage your time.
Because you went to Cambridge.
Cambridge it's not a very big university. There are much bigger universities in the UK, but there are so many professors and so many PhD students or postdoctorate students who live there, who work there, that the ratio of teachers, professors to students is massive. Class size is very small, and the lectures, you don't have loads and loads of students, or quite few students in a lecture. And there's also, Cambridge and Oxford have these additional meetings of professors that are called, at Cambridge they're called supervisions, and at Oxford I think they're called tutorials, which happen outside of lectures, in addition to lectures, where you meet with professors in groups of 2 or 3 or 4, and they set you, it's a bit like school actually, they set you homework. So you have, in addition to the lectures that every university has, at Cambridge you have these extra, smaller, more focused sessions with just 2 or 3 students, or sometimes by yourself. I had lots of supervisions by myself with a professor on a specific topic, and they would set you work, and you'd come back the next week to the same supervision, to the same lecturer, and they would mark your work. It's quite scary. It's quite scary.
I can imagine.
And I did a lot of music as well. I mean, I studied music, that was my degree, classical music, but I sang a lot in choirs. I played trombone a lot in orchestras. I had a lovely time. I had a really nice.
That's brilliant.
I ended up having quite a good progression from school to university. I've always felt that we're a very close family. We've been quite spread out sometimes, and especially when we all went to university. When my 2 sisters and I went to university, and then you were in Alderney, Mum was in Portsmouth, and we were in Bristol, Oxford and Cambridge. We were all quite spread out. I had already been to a boarding school, so I was used to being away during the week. And obviously you were in Alderney, so I didn't see you very often. So I suppose I was used to being a bit independent, at least through school, as sort of as independent as you can be. And then at university, well, I lived by myself before I had a gap year, and I went to live in Sherborne for a year.
Yes,
and that was the first time I lived by myself properly. I lived with another guy, but we lived in a flat by ourselves. We were sort of completely independent, did all of our own, shopping and cooking and everything for the first time. And then I went to university, and I think I was probably as prepared for university as it's possible to be, because I had the academic practice from BDAS of doing your own work and managing your own time and not being shepherded or looked after really closely by teachers. And I enjoyed it, but it means every time we went back home, it was a lovely kind of, and we were coming to Alderney for Christmas and for the summer. So every time then I came back home, it was very special.
That's lovely. You've got good memories of it.
I was homesick, I was looking forward to going home at the end of term and everything, but I never really, sounds very rude, I never really missed. Excuse me. Sorry. I was never really, really homesick.
Actually, it's quite right, because I could never remember your name either.
I don't know. I was really happy. It was difficult. It was sometimes academically, and it was very difficult to kind of fit in everything that I wanted to do. And sometimes it would be quite exhausting. Or you'd kind of think, I really, really wish I could go home this weekend and just sort of lie down and not do anything. But it was really fun. Yeah.
If you're going home and think, great, I'm going to see my siblings, your sisters, and so on, maybe Trixie out with the dog.
Yes.
And mum and dad. And it's nice to feel that unit coming back together for all its family tensions that might have been. There's a completedness or a completeness about it, isn't there? And I think it's because we all get on in our own way, but we're quite different kinds of people in lots of ways.
Yeah.
Which I think was also true of my family, my sister and I. We're very close, but we can also be quite combative as well if we want.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. It doesn't do any damage at all, and it's not intended to. But I think my parents helped me to become self-dependent rather than dependent on the family for security, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so I think we were quite happy to be in different places, but when we came back together, it was really lovely.
Yes.
And that's when the fun sparks can fly.
Yes. I think we are all very independent, and not even in the same way necessarily. But we are all very
Selfish.
No, we're very. I don't know what the word is. Each of us is very capable, I think. We have interests that overlap, and we have lots of lovely shared experiences together, but actually we can each do our own thing. We have, in some ways, it sounds a little bit sad, but I don't think it is at all. We have separate lives, which then come together, and then we share lots of stuff. But we do have a kind of quite solid network where each of us is a sort of specific point. We're not kind of codependent.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can step out quite securely from that family circle or formation and get on with another world which is waiting just through that other door without disconnecting.
Yeah.
So you're off to London. No, you're off to Bristol. To see your other sister.
Tomorrow. My mum, who you both know, of course, has come
met her 3 times.
Come from Alderney to London, where I live, and then we got the train from London to York a few days ago. And tomorrow, which is York is where one of my sisters lives, and then tomorrow we're getting the train from York to Bristol, and we'll be there for a few days, and then we'll get the train from Bristol back to London, where I live still, and then she's flying back to Alderney, where you live.
Where you live?
Absolutely.
That's the plan.
Yep.
I can say one. Merry Christmas.
Oh! 良い
お年を。
良いお年を。
あ
あ、
うん
良い
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 お
良い
良いお年を。
良い年を。お年。
年を。
良い
年を。
お年を。